This week, on the record, why Missouri's abortion fight will last far beyond the ballot question. Democrat Mike Hammer is running for governor and is on the record. Democrats rush changes to Illinois' election law in record speed. Why one top Republican called it how you steal an election. Federal law in Missouri's Constitution already requires voters to be U.S. citizens to register or cast a ballot. So why do some Missouri Republicans want to add that language into the Constitution again? State Senator Denny Hoskins is on the record. It's all coming up right now. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. Voters are preparing now for a major fight over the future of abortion in Missouri. It appears all but certain that question will appear on a ballot at some point this year. But then what? Planned Parenthood doesn't have a license to operate in the state of Missouri. Republicans just moved to block women on Medicaid from using their health insurance at any medical provider that performs an abortion. And our next guest believes the Attorney General is, quote, interfering with women's rights and privacy. Democrat Mike Hammer is running for governor, and he joins us now on the record. Good to have you back on the program.
Thank you.
President Biden's administration just issued a new rule last month that would expand HIPAA to protect women's privacy, especially those women who might cross state lines seeking an abortion. Attorney General Andrew Bailey signed on to this Republican-backed plan to block that rule from going into effect and sort of suggested or indicated that that kind of state surveillance is not happening. Are you under the impression that it is?
Well, no, to your point, last year, Attorney General Bailey signed on to a Republican-led effort that would have allowed women's private health records to be used against them in investigations of alleged violations of extreme anti-abortion laws, including when women must travel out of state for abortion care.
So I guess it's also interesting that, the AG is pursuing this. You're running for governor. You could have highlighted any other Republican candidates running for governor. Why single this specific thing out in your race?
Well, I think it's critical to the women in the state of Missouri. I mean, Attorney General Bailey wants the right to access women's private health records so they can be prosecuted for leaving the state for abortion care, and that's just wrong. He has a track record, Mark, of filing frivolous lawsuits to score political points. And I think it's important to put him on notice, and he needs to stand down. Women's private health records should remain private, and politicians like Andrew Bailey have no right to access those records. He needs to stop interfering in efforts to protect women's rights and privacies. And, not only are anti-abortion policies bad for women, they're also bad for our state's economy. Just last week, Mark, CNBC released a poll that proves that what we already know, a majority of young workers refuse to live and work in states with abortion bans. I talk with parents in Missouri almost every day who say the same thing to me. They want their kids and grandkids to stay here, but these abortion bans just push them away. Mm-hmm. Extremists in Jefferson City are holding our state back, and it needs to stop. And Missourians are tired of this political grandstanding, including myself.
There are some red state legislatures that have outlawed women who live there from leaving their state to seek abortions elsewhere. The Supreme Court has spoken about this somewhat. I'm not sure that will withstand judicial scrutiny. Missouri is not one of them. Missouri has not said that women here can't go to Illinois, for example, to seek an abortion there. Is it your belief that the state is trying to ascertain that information, to surveil women's traveling, for example?
Absolutely. And this is exactly why I sent the letter, because Attorney General Bailey has a track record. He has a strong record of filing these frivolous lawsuits to score political points. And he's on record right now and on the path of absolutely stopping women in the state of Missouri from leaving the state to seek care for reproductive health care or abortion care.
I want to avoid some hypotheticals, but if you're running for governor, certainly you're probably watching closely some of the legislation that is being passed to Governor Parson's desk. He just signed this proposal that would ban any medical provider from accepting Medicaid reimbursement. Basically, people in poverty, that's their health insurance. If you have a Medicaid card, you come to a hospital, and that hospital one day tries to perform an abortion in the future, maybe if voters want to bring abortion back to Missouri, I'm wondering, does that put their whole health insurance at risk at that point from other providers? Or how do you're going to have to change a number of laws if voters bring abortion back to Missouri.
Oh, no question about it. And that's why we need to stand up now and start taking actions. Like, we've got to stop these kind of ridiculous games that are being played, the grandstanding that's happening, and the restrictions that are being imposed on women in the state of Missouri. Missouri has one of the most extreme bans on women's right for reproductive health care, including abortion. And it's time to shift that. It's time to restore those rights to the women in this state.
I don't know how confident you are that that Democrats rather, can regain control of the House or Senate. I mean, how that kind of puts you in a bit of a bind. If you become governor, you've got the Republicans still leading the chambers there. I mean, do you have any hope of restoring, for example, Medicaid funding to places like Planned Parenthood?
Absolutely. I have a lot of confidence. I think the voters are going to have the option and the opportunity to state what they see as the right thing to do in the state come election time when the abortion initiative is put on the ballot. They're going to have the right to go to the polls, and they're going to have the ability to restore those rights in the state of Missouri. And that's going to send a very strong signal to all legislators and office holders in the state of Missouri that anything around that has got to be reversed to provide women the right to make their own decisions around the reproductive health care and to be supported from a healthcare standpoint.
There's some people around the abortion issue who describe this ballot initiative as something of a restoring Roe standard, but we know that even under the Roe standard in Missouri, there were very few abortions actually happening because of those other legal hurdles, and that's a whole different conversation for another time. While I have you, I want to ask you about Governor Parsons' trip to the southern border this week, where he signed a bill into law that would spend $2.2 million in state money to have Missouri National Guard monitor surveillance video, operate drones there at the southern border, and some of them may even install razor barbed wire that the Supreme Court said the federal government can take down when state National Guardsmen put it up. Would you have signed that bill into law?
Absolutely not. This is protecting our borders, securing our borders, and ensuring that people come into this country legally is a federal issue. It is not in the hands of our state government. And what Governor Parsons is doing is he's spending taxpayers' money, Missourians' taxpayers' money, to send our men and women of the Missouri National Guard to the border to do the job of our federal government. And we shouldn't be doing that.
It costs states like Illinois, and it could theoretically cost states like Missouri to have people here who have come here illegally. There are a number of Democrats who supported this proposal. What would you say to Democrats who signed on to this plan?
I would say that we've got so many other opportunities in this state where money needs to go. We're neglecting those opportunities. We need to let the federal government do their job. And we shouldn't be spending our taxpayers' money and doing the job of the federal government.
All right, Mike Hammer, thanks for your time.
Great. Thank you so much.
Changes to Illinois' election law. We have reaction from one area Republican coming up next. Missouri Governor Mike Parsons signed several bills into law this week. One of them took him out of state. Parsons traveled to Eagle Pass, Texas to sign a measure to spend state money deploying 250 Missouri National Guard troops to the southern border. Several of them are operating drones or monitoring surveillance video feeds. Parsons previously said some of them might install razor barbed wire, which the Supreme Court already said the president can order the Border Patrol to take down. Parsons also signed a law that would defund Planned Parenthood or other abortion facilities in Missouri. The new law blocks Missouri's Medicaid program from reimbursing Planned Parenthood for any health care services it provides other than abortions, which remain outlawed. Planned Parenthood says it will continue to see Medicaid patients and will eat the cost. A state law banning abortion has been in place in Missouri since 2022. When the Illinois General Assembly passes a bill, they usually have 30 days to deliver it to the governor's desk. The governor then gets 60 days to review it, sign it, or veto it. But they didn't need any of that time, nowhere near 90 days to process a bill that Governor J.B. Pritzker just signed. In fact, it may have passed in record time. Democrats, who hold a supermajority in both chambers, rushed an elections bill through, and Governor Pritzker signed it in just 30 hours. It says if no one ran in the primary, then the local party can no longer appoint someone to run in the November general election.
Obviously, they were concerned. Otherwise, they wouldn't have changed the law in the middle of the game. Southern Illinois, where Jerry Costello and Brandon Phelps used to hold, blue, as Democrats used to hold, and those have turned red.
That's the House Republican leader, Tony McCombie there. House Democrat Jay Hoffman sponsored this idea. It would have kept a Republican challenger off the ballot in the district next door to him. But former Edwardsville Police Chief Jay Keevan raced to file his signatures with the Board of Elections just moments before Governor Pritzker could sign that new law into effect. So House Republicans feel confident Keevan may appear on the November ballot to face incumbent Democrat Katie Stewart. But he might face a challenge at the State Board of Elections in July. When should an abortion question be put on the ballot? Senator Denny Hoskins weighs in next. Decision 2024 is shaping up to be one of the most consequential elections in Missouri history. Voters will decide major questions about abortion, sports betting, the minimum wage, guaranteed sick leave, on top of who will sit in a U.S. Senate seat, every seat in Congress, and of course, every statewide office as well. The Secretary of State's office is bustling with activity right now as staff organize and prepare to scrutinize hundreds of thousands of petition signatures to put those questions on the ballot. State Senator Denny Hoskins is running for that office. He's now on the record. Senator, Governor Parson said he expects to have the option to schedule this abortion question on either the August or the November ballot. But in order to have both of those options, the current Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft, would have to fast track the certification through a random sampling of these petition signatures instead of sending them all to each county for that more thorough review. What should Ashcroft do here?
Well, obviously, I think that we would rather have that question maybe on the primary ballot. I'm going to defer that to, Secretary of State Ashcroft. I know wants to be very diligent in his job and make sure that all those signatures are actual verifiable signatures. That we didn't have ballot signature gatherers that just wrote names out of the phone book. And so let's just trust the process and see, hopefully, what he comes up with. And if I was Governor Parson, I'd definitely probably want to have that on the August ballot in order to have more turnout in a primary election versus a general election. But we'll see what happens in that process.
You said that much was obvious. So you think it would drive turnout higher in a primary? What's the thinking there politically? Is there some strategy to putting the abortion question on the primary instead of the general? Because usually it's the inverse. There's more people turning out in the general.
There's a lot of different thoughts on this. If we can get an issue petition reform bill passed to make it a little bit harder to put something in the Missouri Constitution, then we would probably want that on the August ballot, and then the pro-abortion initiative to legalize abortion up until birth on the November ballot. So I know that there's a lot of attorneys that are being paid probably big bucks to figure out what would happen if both the pro-abortion initiative and the IP reform initiative were both on the same ballot and both passed in August. If that those initiative petitions that were not related to making it a little bit harder to put something in the Constitution, if both of them passed, would they have to follow the new IP reform guidelines?
You used the phrase abortion up until birth. I want to just advise our viewers and any voters to go read the actual language where it does say the state can put restrictions on abortion and be careful with the language there. You mentioned Senate Republicans are also pushing this plan to make it harder to change the state constitution there. If that idea is popular enough on its own to pass, then why add other unrelated or redundant language like banning non-citizens from voting?
I don't think it's redundant at all. There are other states such as Vermont, I believe Maryland, maybe Maine, California, that have very similar language to what we have in the Missouri Constitution. And what we have is in Article 8, Section 2, it says all citizens can vote in elections. It does not say only citizens can vote, and it does not say non-citizens can vote. And I think there's a very distinct difference. And so we want to make sure that we don't follow the lead of other states that are allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections, such as school board, city council, and things like that, to vote in Missouri elections. And so that's why I think that the Missouri Constitution needs to be changed to make sure that only citizens can vote, not all citizens. And then,
but just to read from people are calling it ballot candy. I don't love that term, but that actually doesn't talk about local elections. It talks about an initiative petition process to change or replace a portion of the Constitution. But as you know, you just read, I'll read it to you here. The Missouri Constitution already lists what you need to be qualified to vote in Missouri. It says citizens of the United States over the age of 18 who are residents of this state, plus there's the federal law that bans a non-citizen from voting. So let me ask you this. Why do you think a person here illegally would want to walk into a government facility show some apparently fake or fraudulent ID, which you'd have to do in Missouri, and then risk
Yes.
deportation. Because as you know, they don't just throw the ballot out, they throw you out of the country. If you get caught voting as a person who's not here legally, you're swiftly deported.
Well, I would disagree with that. I mean, we're looking at our southern border right now, and the only vetting process that's coming in as far as illegal immigrants coming through our southern border is whoever the cartels, Mexican cartels, allow to come in. So I would disagree that illegal aliens are being deported here in the state of Missouri. And like I said, they're already allowing this in other states. We don't want that to come here to Missouri.
Last question on this is I'm just curious.
Yes.
So you have to show an ID to vote in Missouri, correct?
Yes.
You have to have an ID. You have to be a citizen to register to vote in Missouri, correct?
Yes, you have to have an ID in order to register to vote.
And
yes.
you must be a citizen of the United States. You have to attest to citizenship to register to vote. So how do you do all that if you're not a citizen? I'm confused what problem you're trying to fix here.
I guess we need to look at those other states like Maryland and Vermont and California, where they're letting non-citizens vote in local elections. They have very similar language than we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has been a problem in other states, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen here in Missouri.
Moving on, you also are well aware a Kansas man is suing you and two of your colleagues for defamation after you incorrectly labeled him an illegal violent immigrant at the Chiefs Parade mass shooting there. He was neither here illegally, nor was he a mass shooter. He's an American citizen who was never a suspect in that shooting. I understand there's ongoing litigation here, so I won't ask you about the details of the case. But can we assume that because you've deleted the original tweet that you acknowledge you rushed to judgment?
You know, I'm not going to talk about the case, but what I will say is there are thousands of people that retweeted that original post online. It wasn't I nor any of my colleagues that took that picture and posted it online with actually a false name. It was the media that actually identified who that was and said that that was the wrong person. So, again, I'm not going to comment on that pending litigation, but I'm a big advocate for freedom of speech, and I'm also a big advocate to make sure that we do not have illegal aliens here in the state of Missouri.
Do you feel then you were duped?
Again, I'm not going to comment on the pending litigation. I think the Attorney General's office, if we have further need to have further conversations on that, most certainly I know that they're willing to talk about protecting freedom of speech as well as protecting the freedom to retweet a media post that was on Twitter.
We all enjoy freedom of speech. We don't enjoy the freedom to defame someone. I want to ask you about the Attorney General's role here. You used your personal campaign account to post that information. Now the AG is taking the case as your defense attorney, effectively, and arguing that you did so in your official capacity as a state senator. I wonder if you agree with that legal analysis. Why should taxpayers have to foot the bill for your legal troubles?
I agree with what the Attorney General's assessment was. There's been court cases that have said that our official social media accounts we cannot block people, and so I used my Twitter account in order to post official business, as anyone else can see.
This is just a benefit that I didn't know existed. Not only are you legally allowed to use campaign funds, which you could have used for your legal defense, but now you can use taxpayer money. Is that fiscally responsible?
The Attorney General has ruled that this is an official Twitter page, and being an official Twitter page is subject to sunshine laws and things like that. That's already been determined in the court. And so the Attorney General has decided that they are going to represent us because it was based on our official capacity and we have official business on there.
All right, Senator, thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
You can catch more of our interview with Senator Hoskins online, including more about sports betting. Just head to ksdk.com. Before we go, I'll take you behind the scenes a bit. Our editorial and production meetings, they usually go quite smoothly. We usually have a good idea what political news happened during the week, and that often guides us on how we should go about checking the record. Not this week. Our show producer, Ashley Brandmeier, and I just could not agree on this segment. Neither of us would concede that the other had the better mom. So today, on this Mother's Day, let the record reflect on two great moms. My mom, Suzanne, one of the cheeriest people you'd ever hope to meet, always looking for ways to show love to friends and neighbors alike. And Ashley tells me her mom is one of the most steadfast and kind women in the world and also loves people on purpose, intentionally. Another reason we love them both, they're also some of the most loyal viewers of this very program. To all the moms out there, thank you for what you do. It's like Abe Lincoln said, all that I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. That's all of our time this week. We'll be back next week with more political news. Until then, we're off the record.